Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino. Our guest today is Cindy Jacoby. Cindy is an entrepreneur, management consultant, and coach who is dedicated to making the workplace collaborative, engaging, and productive. Cindy utilizes numerous tools to assess employee engagement and communication styles and spends much of her time helping her clients hire for job fit. She does this using a patented job benchmarking process that matches candidates to jobs. One. Cindy, welcome to Business Notes and thank you for being on the show today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks.
All right. So, Cindy, you and I kind of do the same thing, but what made you become an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I had been in education, actually was a background of mine. And as a new teacher at a private school, you get pulled into doing all kinds of things. And one of the things that I got roped into doing was teaching the middle school drugs and alcohol. I call it sex, drugs, and rock and roll class. Like nobody wanted to teach. And so I really enjoyed being with the kids and psychology and all of that. And I ended up going to graduate school and getting a master's in education and counseling and was a guidance counselor for a long time. And then I ended up, fast forward, going to business school. And again, I gravitated towards the leadership part of that. I mean, I learned the weighted cost of capital, but when am I ever going to use that? But I know it's out there, but I really like the leadership stuff. And so I ended up leaving the school after, 17 years and going into business. And then that morphed into coaching. I did business for 5 years and again, it always was the people part of that. So,
right. Yeah, that's a great leap there from counseling into coaching. So that's a good segue for that, good preparation for coaching.
Well, I say I'm still a guidance counselor. It's just for grownups.
That's right. That's right. In the introduction, I mentioned that you use tools in your business. Tell us what those tools are.
Well, again, it just kind of Forrest Gump blind luck. I stumbled onto the DISC assessment. I thought if I'm going to be a coach, I probably should have an assessment. So I found one online and I was I was blown away by how short it was and B, how accurate it was. And so I got involved with DISC, and then there's some other tools that go with DISC, the driving forces, the why you do what you do, and that leads to emotional intelligence. But all of this gives you such a robust picture of your coachee or the leaders that you're working with, and it's been tremendous.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite assessment that you use?
My favorite assessment is the Talent Insights from TTI. When that's two sciences, it's the DISC and the driving forces. I'm starting to do more of emotional intelligence because being able to control your emotions is another huge thing. But day to day, that's just a really quick one. It's easy to explain. And the deeper I go into an organization, and often sometimes the higher up you go, you get into some more robust assessments. The HD is I'm going through a recertification for that, which is more on capacity for thinking about systems and people and things like that. So,
right. And now you have taken that DISC to another level with a podcast that you do. So tell our viewers about that.
Well, I've become this. I get excited when I talk about DISC, and it's like snake oil. I feel like you can use it in so many different parts of your business. It's such a value for hiring and all this. So a colleague of mine who does something similar, she's a competitor really, but we both like the DISC, and we thought we would do a podcast just to make the DISC more well known. And we call ourselves the Disky Chicks, and it's just a fun name. And so we have to focus on DISC, but every weekly podcast focuses on a different use for DISC. And we'll start adding in 2021, this year, we'll start adding some of the other assessments because we do use more than just the DISC. But if you're trying to start out, DISC is the way to go for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I love that name, Disky Chicks. That is so clever. So, just for the sake of our viewers, I'm sure there must be one person that's been living under a rock that's not familiar with the DISC. So the D is for dominance, the I is for influence, the S is for steadiness, and the C is for compliance. So, ideally, if you had a 4-person team, you would want one of each on your team, a DIS and a C.
Right.
But you and your partner that you just mentioned, you're both high I, low C, right?
It's a disaster.
So
Yes.
I was going to ask you, is that good or bad that you're
It's
both the same?
awful. No, we have a great time because the high I is influence and optimistic and funny and chatty. So a podcast is the perfect platform for us, but not together. Martha and my C's are still less than 10, and that's combined. So what that means is that when you're a high C, you look for rules and standards and compliance, and you want to be able to know what the rules are so you can follow them. And since low C's are we feel like we are oppressed by rules, and we want to break free, and you can't tell us what to do. That makes it really hard to keep on a schedule. And so we value the C. We wish we had more of it, and we made a New Year's resolution this year that we will always we'll post our podcast on a Thursday, we'll record on a Tuesday, we'll do some kind of social media marketing, and it's already the 9th, and so far we've stuck with it. So
Very good. Very good.
yeah,
Well,
check back in February and see where we are. So
yeah. Well, my C's a little higher, so call me and I'll set you two straight.
thank
Okay.
you.
But that leads me into my next question, Cindy. Having been in education and having that low C, how did you cope? And I'd like to give encouragement to people who might be in a constraining environment who are low C's. How do they cope?
Well, one thing that I was attracted to, the particular school that I worked in, it was an independent school. And so you had a lot more leeway and less paperwork. You were allowed to make your own decisions, create your own classes, probably more so than you would in a traditional public school. And it's interesting, I was asked to serve on a board, and it happened to be a public school board, which I was not really excited about until I heard it was a charter school. And the whole reason for a charter school is to do something different, lessen the rules, and be able to teach the way that you want to teach and attract people to your school because of that, instead of everything having to be the same for everybody. So I probably would not do well in a large institution or a government-based, rule-based institution. That would not comfort me at all. It would be really stressful. So
yeah, I can see that. So, in your introduction, I also talked about benchmarking. So, how did you get from benchmarking to employee engagement?
Well, it started the other way around. I started in employee engagement. Well, I've always just passionately loved my jobs. And as I left my 17-year job at the school, which I happen to have gone to high school there too, so I'm very comfortable there. Going out into the real world, I noticed that there were people that didn't like their job, which to me was crazy. Why would you work there if you don't like your job? But I also realized what influence a manager has. And so that was the basis for me going off onto my own and focusing on employee engagement, because I saw how important it was. And then the more I studied it, it's not employee satisfaction, because people are perfectly satisfied, going to work at exactly 8 and leaving at exactly 5 and taking every break and every holiday. And, that doesn't mean that they're engaged and they love what they're doing. So that's kind of was my mission. And job benchmarking is more of a tactic to hire people who are going to love their job. It's all about job fit. And so that's why those two go together a lot. And I will say, I was just reconciling my year from last year, and the majority of my business was doing job benchmarking, because that's a tangible idea that you can talk to any business who's having trouble hiring, or they have a high turnover position. There's something wrong about the fit, because almost every time there's the right person for a job that I may hate, a high C job. Put me in a dark room and make me code, that's not going to work. But that would, somebody would love to do that. So in job benchmarking, we first just look at the job. What is the job going to offer? Who's going to love this job? Who's going to be intrinsically rewarded with this job? And we make this perfect robot profile. And then we look at candidates. Well, we make a job description based on that. We want to repel people like me from jobs like coding all day. So we want to repel the wrong person and attract the right person. And so that whole process with our clients, they become so clear about what that job is going to reward. And that's how you attract the right candidate. And the job benchmarking report you get has interview questions. It has, it's just a whole great process. I just published a graphic that says using one assessment in 6 ways just in hiring. So I'll send that to you, Diane. It shows you again that value of that one assessment and what it can do.
Is that on your website?
Well, I just produced it. I shouldn't say I've published it, but I'm about to, yes, I'm about to post it and give that, just if people are curious about, if you're trying to sell this to your boss that you want to start doing, having assessments, you can say, look, here's 6 ways with one assessment. And it includes onboarding. Because if you think about it, you have the candidate take the talent assessment, you match it up to the job's talent assessment, and you get a physical report called a gap report that shows you where they're a great match, where you might need a little bit development. But when you onboard that candidate, you have her talent assessment insight. So you can go over that with her. You can onboard with the manager. They know on day one whether one person's fast and one person's slow. And why wait 90 days to figure that out, to figure out your boss or to figure out your employee? It's such a gift that you can give that new hire of, okay, here's how I operate. I'm very direct. I come in, I want stuff. And then they don't take things personally. Gosh, he hates me. He just comes in and never says good morning. I was like, well, no, he's a high D, and they're just trying to get stuff done. So when you understand that, it relieves a lot of tension and fear in the workplace.
True. So what else do you offer your clients, Cindy?
That's such a loaded question, because when I work with clients, we talk about focusing on one thing, and this assessment does so many things that I can't say I do leadership development only, because I do job benchmarking, I do employee engagement, but usually I say it's anything that's around the messy part of the work, systems and processes. Not my bag, as you can imagine, being a low C. I mean, I can do that and I can advise people to do that, but that's not what I focus on. I focus on the people parts of that, because any great strategic plan can be ruined if you don't have the right people, implementing that plan, or if you don't communicate it well to your team, and you communicate news differently to different members of your team. I mean, some people love to mix things up like an I or a D, and in high S, if you're going to make a bunch of changes, you've got to really sell that to them, make sure they understand why you're making these changes, because they don't like change just for change's sake. So just knowing you've got to have a lot of different ways to roll out something new, again, makes your strategic plan and your process is more effective.
Right. Leaving out that why is something a lot of organizations make, and is a mistake that a lot of organizations make, I should say. Yeah. What advice would you give entrepreneurs going forward now in terms of how business is changing today?
My biggest advice is hire good people and keep the job that you want them to be doing in mind, but it's the people are the most important thing. Skills, you may know that in addition to the talent assessment that has those 2 sciences, there's a third science that has soft skills in it. But that's really, which sounds like it's the most important, but it's really the least important, because skills can be developed. So if you're a startup and you're looking for innovation, get some people that think innovatively. Maybe somebody who likes to follow rules, that might not be your best person. You want somebody who can think differently. So get the right type of person, and then they'll learn the skills to fill that job. But really identify whether you need a detail-oriented focused. If you're in healthcare, you might want somebody who's really good with rules, because there's some things that you've got to do or you're going to get in a lot of trouble, or, IT, those kinds of things. So it really depends on your business and where you're trying to go. But the people will make you or break you every time, no matter, everybody has a good plan until they're punched in the face, right? You gotta have that person to implement it.
That's
Yeah.
What advice would you give entrepreneurs going forward now in terms of how business is changing today?
I'd say the best advice is to get a mentor. And I was slow on that uptake, and I like to learn things by myself. Again, don't tell me what to do. And I have, but I could have sped things up a lot faster if I, had a go-to person that I could talk to, a mentor. And I'll say what's been saving me are our industry conferences, with when you meet other people like you and my colleague Martha and Disky Chicks. Met her at our industry conference that does the assessments. And so they give you all kinds of new ideas on how to use it. And since these assessments are so versatile, the people that you meet are rarely your direct competition. They are using their report in a different way. They're using it for marriage counseling, for career development. It's crazy what you can do with sales training, what you can do with these things. So be around people who are your competitors, but do similar things, and get a mentor, and read. Oh, and get an accountant, especially if you're a low C. Don't try to figure out tax law and all that. There's so much that you have to learn. As soon as you can offload things that you're not good at, do it. In this gig economy, it's really easy to do. I finally used Upwork to do some publishing or some graphic design. They did it in 20 minutes what I would have fretted over for weeks. So I was really afraid to try them, but they've been great. So
Great. Nice plug for them. Okay, great.
yeah,
Let's spread the love. That's what I say. Make the
absolutely.
pie bigger. How do you prefer that people get in touch with you?
Probably via LinkedIn or via email. It's cindy.jacoby@bizhelpconsulting.com. And I'm sure that will be in your show notes as well.
Wow. I hope people watch this twice, because you have given them
I
given
get
business,
excited and talk a lot.
but there's a lot of good information here that organizations can really use and have a better organization, better hiring, better culture. So I really appreciate you being on the show today.
It's a pleasure. And hopefully you can come speak on the Disky Chicks podcast. I would love to reciprocate.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you. Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Cindy Jacoby, entrepreneur, management consultant, and coach. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.